This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Morning, Bob. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
And I'm good. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. This is a great place to come visit. It's a great place to come for Vanderbilt athletics. And I was here for women's basketball and here for baseball, so pretty happy. Go to Hoover next week, packed for 7 days, plan on being on the road for maybe 13. So I'm pretty good. Baseball team's playing well, going to be playing at home. And just like you wrote in the Democrat-Gazette a couple of days ago, Razorback baseball's been pretty darn good at home. Good thing, it looks like they're playing all their home games, all their games in the NCAA postseason, at least until Omaha, at home.
Yeah, I don't think they have to win this Vanderbilt series or win a game in Hoover. I mean, obviously you don't want to get swept and go to Hoover and go 0-2, and I don't think that'll happen. But, they've done so much already. I mean, last year they had the high ranking in the polls. Their RPI wasn't that good, and it wasn't really it was just kind of the strength of schedule out with the non-conference, and some of that was maybe scheduling, and some of that was teams not doing as well as you expected them to. And it's kind of hard to project, how teams are going to do. Obviously, I mean, like you look at a team like Ole Miss, and what's happened to them this year. But this year, I think their RPI, last time I looked, which was a couple of days ago, was number 4. So I think they're in real good shape to host the regional, and obviously, a super regional if they advance. I hope people understand just having a regional doesn't guarantee you're going to be in a super regional, because I don't have statistical data in front of me, but I think it's safe to say every year out of 16 home seeds, probably 5 or 6 lose. I mean, don't advance to super.
Well, the numbers are pretty clear between home and road as far as how they hit, how they pitch, even how they field too. They're just comfortable there, And we're in a place here in Vanderbilt. I don't know if you've been to the Vanderbilt baseball park before, Bob, but this is not the most comfortable place, and it's got to be one reason why Vandy is 11-1 in their home ballpark. They're coming off a road trip where they lost 7 of 9, but when you're playing when you're Arkansas, hello, I heard a cat there.
Yeah,
I have to stop things for a moment because I'm a cat guy. It's the first time we've had your cat on the show.
Yeah.
Who is that cat's name?
This is Whitaker, named after Lou Whitaker.
After Forrest? Oh, Lou, yeah.
Lou. He should be in the Hall of Fame, but that's another discussion for another day. Unless you guys want to talk about that.
Hey, sometimes I do the show with the cat in my lap, so you can do the same thing, too. It's okay. Hawkins Field is an all-turf surface. Baum-Walker is an all-natural turf surface. Baum-Walker is huge by college baseball standards. Even by college baseball standards, Vanderbilt's park is small. Their dugouts are tiny. You can't even fit the entire team in there. At least it doesn't feel like you can. So these next 3 games are completely different just because of where you're playing.
Yeah, I've never covered a game at that ballpark. I've seen it covering basketball games. It's right next. I guess it's really up against the old Memorial Gym there. Mm-hmm. I guess it's a cozy ballpark, you might say. But Dave talked about that. About obviously the way the ball gets on top of you on that unnatural surface infield, I'll call it. And Vandy guys are used to it. Arkansas has been a great defensive team this year, and I think they'll play good defense. But yeah, I think there's a reason teams have a home advantage, and they tailor their team to it. And, I love grass. I think most people do, but it probably saves Vanderbilt, money on groundskeeping and other things. And also they probably feel like it gives them a built-in advantage, so I don't think they'd change that.
Hey, Matt, did you ever notice a difference in a team that is used to playing football on a natural grass surface, and then when you had to go play on a turf surface, was there any difficulty adjusting to it?
The thing that's different, and I remember talking with Coach Del Rio about this, because we played the Colts, and they play on that artificial surface, and then you have natural grass. Your bones, your knees, your body, it takes an extra day or two to recover after you have a game, because the turf does not give the same way that the natural grass does. And I really don't think that turf's made for 300-pounders. I mean, you have more knee injuries, you get hurt more on the artificial surface. And I've always been a proponent of playing on the natural grass instead of the artificial surface. But we had that so when we had to play a team that was on an artificial surface, we had a practice field that would be that way, so you could practice and get used to it. You have to wear different spikes, in your cleats, and it is definitely a little bit different.
Bob, Peyton Holt out at second base, labrum surgery, and Peyton Holt in at second base. We've seen him the last 6 games, though, and truthfully, I think Peyton Stovall's a really good ball player, but I don't think we saw him at 100% for maybe more than a month this year. Holt at 100%, he's pretty good. I'm not sure if you lose much.
Yeah, it's real unfortunate with Peyton Stovall. You got to give him a lot of credit for playing through that pain as long as he did. And you remember some big moments he had, like that grand slam. I guess it was the A&M opener, I think it was. And so he had his moments. When you look at the stats, the batting average, especially in conference play, just wasn't adding up. I think he was batting under 200 in conference play. He's obviously a better player than that. I think he's healthy. He's probably one of the best players in the SEC. And so, and second base, yeah, Peyton Holt played really well. Of course, he's an older guy. He's a junior, JUCO transfer, and in-state kid. And I think he was 6 of 10 against South Carolina. Pretty good pitching, and I don't think they really lose anything defensively, especially when you consider what Peyton Stovall was playing through. So I think it's obviously better for, as much as I'm sure Peyton Stovall hates, missing the rest of the season. And it's obviously the best thing, and the sooner they do it, the sooner he can start recovering and getting ready for next season, hopefully. And Peyton Holt's not there, just throwing him in there, cold off the bench. I think this will be the 3rd series he's done this, and he got some midweek experience. Hey, Whitaker, he's playing well.
He wants to be on the air.
A couple hours ago. Yeah, she ate a couple hours ago. I think she's told me she wants more delectables for close 15. But I think they're going to be okay there. Now they can't afford any more injuries at this point. Of course, their outfielders are getting back. Tavian Josenberger got back last week, and Jared Wagner's coming back for this series, and Dave said he's done well in batting practice. So this is kind of the way the season starts. They get Brady Tiger back, and they lose Dylan Carter. They're getting their outfielders back, and they lose Peyton Stovall. But of course Vanderbilt's down a starting pitcher tonight too. Their normal game 1 guy is not going.
Bob's still there.
They've been hit as hard as anybody.
Lost Bob for a moment there. I don't know if maybe the cat might have accidentally hung up,
Okay.
There we go. We got him back here. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay.
Hey, Bob, I did want to ask you about this football offseason transfer portal, if you could give them a grade or how well have they done identifying their needs and getting some players in the transfer portal. Now, I know we won't be able to give them a real grade till after the season, but what are your thoughts on this football team and Coach Pittman in this transfer portal bringing in 12 new guys already?
I think they're doing pretty good. I think they've got 2 scholarships left, and they had the earlier portal, and now the latter portal, or whatever it's called, or Portal 2, or I don't know what they call it, but I guess the second, kind of a later portal window. And I think they've done pretty good. They've added tight ends, which they needed to do. And I guess they had the guy from North Texas who committed, decommitted, recommitted. So hopefully he's on board to stay. And they added some DBs. Just got a guy from TCU, and especially with Quincy McAdoo's car accident, that puts his season in question. So I think they needed some extra DBs, and they added some defensive tackles where I think they needed some help. So I know different websites have different ratings, but I think Arkansas probably had one of the better portal acquisition off seasons on paper. Now, we know they lost a ton of guys, but I think what you have to do is you have to look and see how many of those guys went to other power schools, and how many of those guys might have been encouraged to leave. That's just the way of the world now. And there aren't a whole lot. I can probably count on one hand the number of guys that they probably wish should stay, like a Jordan Dominic, who's at Colorado, or something like that. But I think they've done pretty well upgrading the roster, and also adding depth in places where they needed it.
Well, it's also, I mean, look, they brought in, it's 12-7, 19 players. 19 players at times. That's a full freshman class that comes in.
And they've already had experience, yeah.
Now it's a transfer class that comes in. And Bob, the thing that I'm more interested in about this is that they've brought in a full defensive unit. I mean a full defensive unit. 12 players, really. You know, they have 6 defensive backs, 2 linebackers, 4 defensive linemen. The linemen are 2 tackles and 2 defensive ends. So they brought in a full defensive unit of guys that have experience. I mean, 2 years or 1 year starting experience playing college football. And, man, I mean, you want to talk about depth. When you're bringing in that kind of experience, you are really adding to your depth. And I think it also says something about the guys that were there. You know, when you're bringing in a full unit, you're bringing in essentially a team that could, play an entire series without anybody that was on the team last year.
Yeah, and like I said, I mentioned Jordan Dominic, who I think announced he was going to come back. And then Arkansas added a couple D linemen, and then he decided to transfer because I think maybe he thought, well, they're loading up. And no offense to Jordan, he was a really good player, and I enjoyed interacting with him in interviews. But I think if a guy decides he's going to come back and he sees who you're adding and thinks, well, I don't know if I can compete with these guys, or these guys might get more snaps than I do. In a weird way, as much as they didn't want to lose Jordan Dominic, and they were probably surprised by it. Maybe it means you're upgrading, and you're creating good competition there in practice, in preseason camp. So I think that's going to help. And obviously, you need depth with injuries, and I think their quarterback room is better now than it is. You obviously hope KJ Jefferson can get through the season healthy and not miss any starts. I think that definitely hurt him last year when he had to miss a couple games and wasn't himself for like that Liberty game when he was banged up. And so I think they've added probably across the board. I mean, you can just tell the way Sam Pittman talks, and we'll see what happens. I think he truly, legitimately feels really good about this team. I think he probably feels better than last year when they had some tough losses. I mean, last year they easily could have won 8 or 9 games. It just didn't happen. They lost the close ones and had some injuries that hurt them. And this year we'll see what happens. But you look at the schedule, and it's such a fine line in the SEC. But it's easy to see them winning 8 or 9 games if everything goes right. At least I can see that. But I mean, things have to go right for them, I think.
Well, death, taxes, and being the wrong height in the basketball media guide seems to be how it goes. What are your thoughts on Anthony Black and Jordan Walsh out there at the NBA Combine? Do you think Jordan Walsh comes back after I hear he measured well and is having a good run out there?
Yeah, well, I will say those measurements of the Combine, of course, you went through that, but it's in your socks and not your shoes. And I honestly haven't measured my shoes to see how much height they add. I know from what I've seen or understand, Anthony Black and Nick Smith are not going through the scrimmage stuff, and that's not that surprising. I bet you there's 30 guys out there, maybe more, that are going through that are already rated pretty high picks like those two are. I saw where Jordan played. Portland Sports put this together. And I didn't realize Eric Musselman was going to be at the Combine. I guess he had some commentary on ESPN, too. I missed that. If I'd known he was going to, I'd still watch it. But, I think Jordan didn't score in like 20 minutes, but he had 6 rebounds and 5 assists. And that kind of speaks to his game. That he's an unselfish guy. He's a good rebounder. He's a willing, unselfish passer, and he plays good defense. So hopefully he's helping himself out there, and we'll see what happens. But I think if he gets good feedback, there's probably a good chance he stays in the draft. I don't have any inside knowledge on that. That just kind of, I think that just kind of makes sense. If he's going all the way out there, if he's taking it this far where he's going to the Combine and going through workouts, if he gets good feedback, I think he'll stay in the draft, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I could see him being a second-round pick this year, but if he comes back, I could see him being a first-round pick next year. So it's just it's in the first round's guaranteed, and even if he comes back and goes next year as a first-round pick, he's still 4 years out before he's really starting and playing. He still probably have to do a two-way deal playing a little G League ball, but I think he's going to be all right.
Yeah, I think with him, it's probably just, do you want to come back and play another year with Arkansas in the SEC at high-level college basketball, obviously, or do you want to get a start in your pro career? And I don't know how many games G League teams play, but they probably play 60 or something. So do you want to do that, or do you want to come back to college? But I think if you're going to be in college, I mean, the way Eric Musselman's program, it's run like an NBA team in a lot of ways. I mean, the scouting reports, the game prep, the practices, the sets. I saw where Anthony Black was getting interviewed. The guys all do interviews there, and he talked about how a lot of the actions Arkansas runs are similar to NBA teams, and so I think there's a lot of upside to come back and play in college, especially with NIL. And but it's really up to obviously to what the individual wants and maybe what his advisors and family feel is the best thing for him. And but yeah, I think they're all those guys out there at the Combine for us are good kids and obviously talented players, and really enjoyed covering Jordan. And so wish him the best, whatever he decides to do.
BetOnline.ag is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs. Basketball, MLB, NHL hockey, right down to UFC and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games you can play right from your home. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BLEAV. BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts.